Growing pains and growing up. The home we leave, the home we build, the home we heal. How our childhood experiences affect our adult relationships. We are born with alienable emotional needs for love. Welcome to the Heal Your Love Wounds podcast. I'm your host, Iris Sirianni, and this episode is going to be a slightly different style. Today, I'm going to be reading something from a book that I've been reading. The book is called How to Be an Adult. It's a handbook on psychological and spiritual integration written by David Richo. In a previous episode, I talked about healing your inner child, how our patterns and beliefs about who we are and what we are capable of having in our lives, our worthiness, and how the age of Aquarius supports our healing at this time to raise our consciousness, raise our vibration, and have just an overall awareness. I talked about that in this episode, and I also talked quite a bit in previous episodes about the patterns and how we create our patterns from when we're in childhood. And this entry that I'm going to read from this book really helps to add a lot more clarity and insight into everything that I talk about. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. Growing pains and growing up. The home we leave, the home we build, the home we heal. How our childhood experiences affect our adult relationships. We are born with alienable emotional needs for love, safety, acceptance, freedom, attention, validation of our feelings, and physical holding. Healthy identity is based on the fulfillment of these needs. Only if someone has her arms around the infant can the I am moment be endured, or rather risked, says D.W. Winnicott. The origin of our identity is love. These needs are felt and remembered cellularly throughout our lives, though we may not always be intellectually aware of them. They were originally experienced in a survival context of dependency. We may not feel as adults that our very survival is based on finding someone to fulfill our basic needs. But early primal needs can be fulfilled fully only in childhood, since only then were we fully dependent. In adulthood, the needs can be fulfilled only flexibly or partially, since we are interdependent and our needs are no longer connected to survival. In this next section, David Richo describes the adult whose needs were mostly met in childhood and adults whose needs were mostly unmet in childhood. The adult whose needs were mostly met in childhood is satisfied with reasonable dividends of need fulfillment in relationships, knows how to love unconditionally and yet tolerates no abuse or stuckness in relationships, changes the locus of trust from others to himself so that he receives loyalty when others show it and handles disappointment when others betray. The adult whose needs were mostly not met in childhood exaggerates the needs so that they become insatiable or addictive, creates situations that reenact the original hurts and rejections, seek relationships that stimulate and maintain self-defeating beliefs rather than relationships that confront and dispel them, refuses to notice how abused or unhappy she is and uses the pretext of hoping for change or of coping with what is unchanging. Lets her feelings go underground. If the only safe thing for me was to let my feelings disappear, how can I now permit the self-exposure and vulnerability it takes to be loved? Repeats the childhood error of equating negative attention with love or neurotic anxiousness with solitude. Is afraid to receive the true love, self-disclosure, or generosity of others. In effect, cannot receive now what was not received originally. The child within. Our problem is not that as children our needs were unmet, but that as adults they are still unmourned. The hurt, bereft, betrayed child is still inside of us, wanting to cry for what he missed and wanting thereby to let go of the pain and the stressful present neediness he feels in relationships. In fact, neediness itself tells us nothing about how much we need from others. It tells us how much we need to grieve the irrevocably barren past and evoke our own source of nurturance. The true false self, unconditional and conditional self. Our true self, with all its free energy, impulses, feelings, and creativity, may have threatened our parents. They, after all, may have been victimized in their own childhood and never came to terms with it. They taught us how to behave in accord with their fear-laden specifications. Some of this led to legitimate socializing, some of it was violence to our identity. When we designed a false self that met with our parents' approval and maintained our role in the family, we felt that safety was possible only within those boundaries. Such boundaries became the long-standing habits and patterns that have been our limitations ever since. They were choices that had an origin in wisdom, but now may no longer be serving our best interests. They usually please others, but diminish us. Alice Miller writes that the love I gained with such uphill effort and self-defacement was not meant for me at all, but for the me I created to please them. Once we grieve this loss, we release our hidden inner world of unused and unrevealed qualities and notice how much better we thereby feel about ourselves. We lighten up and may even notice that people love us more. The fear of revealing the true self is disguised in these words. If people really knew me, they would not like me. We can change that sentence to read, I am free enough to want everything I say and do to reveal me as I am. I love being seen as I am. So that now sets the foundation for how all of this falseness and all of the ways that we change ourselves in order to fit into our family units, in order to get our childhood needs met, and if they weren't met the majority of the time, as it's stated at the beginning, then we play out those unmet needs in our adult relationships. So that's the next section. Relationships in adulthood. Love happened for each of us in childhood in a different way. For some it meant being taken seriously. For others, attention, physical holding, giving things to us, doing things for us, loyalty, etc. There is no one objective way love can be shown that will fit for everyone. Love is subjective. Each person reads it best in the language in which she learned it. As adults, we feel genuinely loved when someone creates for us that same original love we received long ago. Relationships between adults work best when each partner knows his or her own specific ways of feeling loved and tells the other person about it. Then the expression of love can be tailored to the unique needs of each partner. As a result, we open ourselves to new ways of feeling love that expand the old limiting ways. We can, of course, also be seduced into believing someone loves us authentically when he has only happened upon this same special trigger point and has no intention of following through on it in the future. It is always appropriate to ask for love, but to ask any other adult, including our parents in the present, to meet our primal needs is unfair and unrealistic. And I'm just going to add my own thoughts to that last statement, because that's exactly what everything that I've read so far is pointing to. When we are missing out on our primal needs from our childhood, we do look as adults to external people, and sometimes including our parents, to continue to provide us with those basic needs. But that is unfair and it is unrealistic, because we're adults now and we have the means to provide all of those within ourselves rather than looking for them through someone else. Most of us emerge from childhood with conscious and unconscious psychic wounds and emotional unfinished business. What we leave incomplete, we are doomed to repeat. The untreated traumas of childhood become the frustrating dramas of adulthood. Our fantasies of the perfect partner or our disappointments in a relationship we do not change or leave, or the dramas that keep arising in our relationships, reveal our unique unmet primal wounds and needs. We try so hard to get from others what once we missed. What was missed can never be made up for, only mourned and let go. Only then are we able to relate as adults to adults. As Emerson profoundly observes, when half gods go, the gods arrive. And really that is everything about inner child healing. It's the releasing of everything from when we were kids and integrating it and accepting it for what it was. We see it from a different perspective, we see it from a different lens, and then we release it and we carry on. Healthy adults are not attached to the negative excitement of relationships in which people are attempting to use them to work out their own unaddressed childhood conundrums. Ironically, this attempt simply recreates the childhood drama anyways. Only personal inner responsibility and grief work lets the curtain finally fall. Our body has memorized childhood scenarios of terror or abuse, but this committing to memory is, ironically, a commitment to secrecy. We cannot now consciously recall or tell what happened. Our automatic cellular reflexes in relationships give us clues and mystify us at the same time. Why do I pull away when she gets close? Was this kind of closeness dangerous to me long ago? Yet my mind tells me I always wanted to be loved like this. And that's a pattern. We want that closeness. We want to love and to be loved. And that last entry really speaks to someone that is avoidant. They want to have people close to them, but as they become close to them, they push them away because there's a fear about having that closeness. It may take many years and just the right circumstances or person to grant us the liberating opening to know and to tell our story in words. When this happens, the memories come back and we hear ourselves putting them into words for the first time. This profound release initiates us into the heavy and healing ways of grief work. The healthy adult can tell the difference between a present conflict with a partner and a re-stimulation of past unfinished distress. The strong feelings tip her off to the presence of archaic stimuli. She acknowledges openly that the feelings are familiar from the past. She takes responsibility for the severity of her reaction and does not implicate this present person in the tying up of a historical loose end. This is riding the present stress to an original distress, and so working on a cause rather than an effect. How touching and bewildering is our plight in adult relationships. We are actually trying to hold on and to let go at the same time. We want so desperately to let go of the hurt that every cell remembers, the hurt that goes on hurting. A working relationship is a crucible in which both of these evolutionary human tasks can be fulfilled. We can be nourished by the love we now receive and work through the pain we once suffered. The love and the pain of the present are directly connected to the love and the pain of the past. Once we acknowledge the continuity of our condition, we clearly see our personal work. A relationship, especially the first one in adult life, can put us in the best position to do that work. Our partner stimulates the love and the pain and then, optimally, supports us in healthy responses to them. How much we miss when we run from love or from the normal hurts in life together. We lose contact with our own history and the healing of it. We lose our chance to capitalize on the here and now, and so get past the past to live in the unencumbered present. Mourning and letting go. What is at first a cup of sorrow becomes at last a mortal wine. Gita. Mourning is the appropriate response to loss. It can proceed through these stages, though the order and timing are unique to each person. Number 1. Reminisce about any pain, abandonment, perfidy, or abuse we saw and or felt. This does not have to be a specific memory about what happened. Our bodies remember more reliably than our minds. A sense of our deprivation or loss is enough. Number 2. Full acknowledgement, experiencing, and expression of feelings. For example, feeling sadness, hurt, anger, or fear, so that the resolution occurs. For example, tears that demonstrate sadness but do not dissipate it are not useful in the completion of grief work. We can express our feelings directly to the people involved, or in therapy, or by ourselves. It is important to say the word goodbye at the end and throughout the process of grieving. Betrayal, abandonment, rejection, disappointment, humiliation, isolation, etc., are not feelings but beliefs. Each of these judgments keep us caught in our story and blinded to the bare fact of loss. Each is a subtle form of blame. Each coddles and justifies our bruised ego. Each distracts us from our true feelings of grief. Grievances dislocate grief work. Anger without blame completes it. Number 3. Healing of memories by re-experiencing them with compassion for our parents and ourselves, and with power by imagining ourselves speaking up self-protectively to abuse. This includes a 6-fold affirmation with the appropriate feelings for each area of that grief, separately for each parent. And here's point 4 of mourning and letting go. A ritual that shows what we have felt and accomplished in our grief work. A ritual is any gesture that enacts our intention or commemorates our attainment. An example would be: write about the whole process, burn it, and plant a tree or flower together with the ashes while saying goodbye. Distilling your grief process into one affirmation and burying a copy of it with the ashes is also useful. Number 5, getting on with our life. not as victims of the irreversible past, but as adults who have engendered an inner nurturant parent. Now we are no longer afraid to be kind to ourselves, to treat ourselves to abundance, to stop depriving ourselves, to stop absorbing pain. This self-parenting is the best condition for true intimacy because, like all good parenting, it is a bridge from aloneness to the world of relating. It ends dependency and allows us to relate as equals with other adult partners. Now need fulfillment becomes enrichment. Only those who can take care of themselves are free from the two main obstacles to adult relating, being needy or caretaking others. I will come to you, my friend, when I no longer need you. Then you will find a palace, not an almshouse, Thoreau once said. The true healing power of grief work extends to past and present. Each issue to be grieved addresses these two areas of concern: the loss or neglect you experienced in the past, and the lifetime habit that may have sprung from the original hurt. For example, you grieve how your parents refused to listen to you in childhood. Now in adult life, you notice that you still hide your feelings from most people. This secretiveness may be your lifelong overreaction to an original injunction from parents who were afraid to know you. Now you are afraid to let others know you. The past is grieved fully only when the present is healed too. In fact, the energy that had been tied up in the past hurts has finally become available to you for reinvestment in new ways of living. To continue our example, you now make a choice to reveal more and more about yourself to more and more people. You drop secretiveness and notice that you survive. Some people will reject or betray you for this openness. Some will love you more than ever. But their response is secondary because your fear has changed to flexibility. Now you have cleared the wake of a ship that passed long ago and healed the scarred present with the newfound powers of the healed past. So, in conclusion, mourning dismantles the illusions we may have harbored and secrets we may have kept about our childhood. At first, this might have seemed a terrifying prospect, but when it happens in accord with our own timing and in the context of grief work, it becomes deeply liberating. Once we have allowed ourselves to experience total disillusionment, we will never again know despair. Mourning is the appropriate response to the loss of what we once had, or to the sad realization that we did not have all we needed. We are grieving the irretrievable aspect of what we lost and the irreplaceable aspect of what we missed. Only these two realizations lead to resolutions of grief, because only these acknowledge, without denial, how truly bereft we were or are. From the pit of this deep admission that something is irrevocably over and gone, we finally stand clear of this insatiable need to find it again from a parent or a partner. To have sought it was to have denied how utter was its absence. Grief work done with consciousness builds self-esteem, since it shows us our courageous faithfulness to the reality of loss. It authenticates us as adults who can say yes to sadness, anger, and hurt. Such a heroic embrace of our own truth transforms emptiness into capacity. As Carl Jung notes, your inner emptiness conceals just as great a fullness if you only allow it. Our psychological work is to journey from the chaos of our personal unconscious to the coherent conscious integration. Our spiritual path then takes us to the treasures of the cosmic, collective unconsciousness and full individualization. Everything in our lives, no matter how terrible, exists in relation to the inner healing force. The journey with father and mother up and down many ladders represents that making conscious of infantile contents that have not been integrating. This personal unconscious must always be dealt with first. Otherwise, the gateway to the collective unconsciousness cannot be opened. Our psycho-spiritual work as adults is thus a heroic journey, since a hero is anyone who has lived through pain and been transformed by it. A universal theme in the myths about early life of the hero is that he is threatened, hurt, or rejected. But the divine child naturally always escapes. It is the last outbreak of darkness against something already so powerful that, although newly born, it cannot be suppressed anymore, as Marie-Louise von France points out. This really is a very good summation of how so many have anchored the pain of their past and are bringing that into their current reality, yet don't have the awareness yet that they are living out trauma from their past and reenacting it out in their relationships. And I want to finish off this episode by reading you something by Alice Miller that I feel really speaks to everything that we've talked about in this episode and really speaks to everything that is going on in the world right now. People whose integrity has not been damaged in childhood, who are protected, respected, and treated with honesty by their parents, will be, both in their youth and adulthood, intelligent, responsive, empathic, and highly sensitive. They will take pleasure in life and will not feel any need to kill or even hurt others or themselves. They will use their power to defend themselves, but not to attack others. They will not be able to do otherwise than to respect and protect those weaker than themselves, including their children, because this is what they have learned from their own experience and because it is their knowledge and not the experience of cruelty that has been stored up inside them from the beginning. Such people will be incapable of understanding why earlier generations had to build up a gigantic war industry in order to feel at ease and safe in the world. Since it will not have to be their unconscious life task to ward off intimidation experienced at a very early age, they will be able to deal with attempts at intimidation in their adult life more rationally and more creatively. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. My work is helping women heal the pain from their past that has been playing out as patterns in their relationships. And if you're interested in learning more about me and my work, please visit my website at irissiriani.com. And until the next episode, be you, be brave, forgive yourself and others, live big, trust yourself, make the tough decisions even though it may break your heart. Trust that what and who leaves your life is meant to leave. Have faith that the space that's left will be filled with new experiences and opportunities that expand your heart and your life.